Hi everyone, how's it going? It is 5:40 in the morning. This is a coffee talk ramble. So grab a beverage and join me on this episode. You know, I saw some other YouTubers talking about paying off their mortgage. So I decided to create a relaxing video for you this morning about how I paid off my mortgage and why I paid off my mortgage. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this two-part episode, which I think I'm going to drop on Tuesday and Thursday, which of course you know by now, for what I like to refer to as lunch and learn. And by the way, it really is 5:40 on Sunday morning. And you might be wondering, why am I up right now? Well, many years ago I read a book. What was it called? His name is Hal Elrod. Something about morning habits. Somebody put it in the comments. I can't remember what it's called. Because this is a coffee talk ramble. I didn't prepare anything. Just in my head, some concepts about me paying off my mortgage. But morning miracles? I can't remember. I'll put it in the comments. But anyway, he talked about what are the habits of successful people, and one of which was getting up super early and thinking about your day. So I used to sleep in quite a bit. Then I discovered that I could get up before anybody else does. It's kind of like, what is that? The Marines? They get up and do more before anybody else. And I used to think about my financial situation a lot early in the morning. By the way, for those of you that are new, this channel is all about reaching financial independence, hopefully at a very early age. I know many of you are super young. My story is I'm 58 years old now. I was broke at 40. I got to a $1.6 million net worth in about 18 or 19 years. It took me 15 years to get to 1 million in 2020. And here it is, almost the end of 2024. Well, really the mid of 2024. And I'm at about 1.6. I like to teach people how they can do it too in a ASMR format. So again, if you're new to this channel, you may not know what ASMR is. So Google it. Automatic sensory meridian response is a feeling that you get with triggers like audio, visual triggers as well, etc. It's a very relaxing type video where people can relax. And I like to blend personal finance with ASMR. So if you like that, consider subscribing and welcome. I barely have a voice this morning, so this is soft-spoken. I do a lot of whispering as well with a hat where I'm kind of like incognito. It's kind of a joke on the channel because, you know, when you go out into society and you walk around, there could be millionaires everywhere. You just may not know it because most of them look like me. Most of them live in a 600 square foot condo. Well, maybe not that small, but this condo that I'm going to talk about today, I've lived here 21 years. That's the secret to building wealth, at least for me. I can share with you what I've done, and that is to stay put. I like to call it a one and done philosophy. I bought it once, and that's all I had to do, and I paid it off. You know, some people think they can't even pay off a car. But you know what? If you guys are young, you'll get to the point where you can do that, and a whole lot more. So, cheers. I'm shooting this early in the morning because you guys know, many of you, that the roofers are redoing the roof, of course, for 7 buildings in this community. I live in Florida, and the insurance rates are really high. So in order for us to get good insurance, we had to have all of our roofs redone, or at least most of them, which is good, but I gotta tell you, it's been really loud. So I'm gonna get out of town for a little while. So this condo that you're looking at right here, my French doors that go out to the patio. The lighting is better over here. What's up with that? Again, I bought this condo when I was 37 in 2003. I'll never forget how proud I was to be a first-time home buyer. After struggling, go back and watch episodes 1 through 62. I talk about my history from 2005 until now. And, you know, I didn't start making good money until I was 32. So for 8 or 9 years, I was living paycheck to paycheck from 32 to 40. Before that, I was a financial train wreck. I had a bankruptcy. Anyway, it wasn't until 40 that I started to be able to do the OTBSI, open to buy, saving and investing. This week, I think you guys are watching episodes about what I wish I knew when I was younger. And hopefully this content will blend nicely with that. But back when I was 37, I decided I wanted to buy a condo. I had maybe $8,000 or $10,000. And, you know, I think I told you I was in the mortgage business for a little while back in my, well, late 20s. And I learned a lot about numbers. That's what got me so obsessed with numbers early on, because I was in the mortgage business for a while, and I did refinances on mortgages, and I had that experience. But I also knew, having the bankruptcy when I was 29, I was afraid to talk to anybody about, could I get a loan? And I remember I went back to the mortgage company that I worked for, and I talked to a guy, and I said, you know what, I want to buy a place. And I said, you know what, I had a bankruptcy. Do you think this is possible? He ran my credit report, which back then I couldn't even pull my credit report. Nobody could. And he said, your credit was better than anybody I've seen that had a bankruptcy. So 29 to 37. Like 7, 8 years or whatever. My credit really got much better. So I ended up putting 5% down on this property, 1 bedroom. I had private mortgage insurance because I put less than 20% down. That means that's insurance that protects the lender, not you. Once 2005 came around, I was able to prove I had enough equity, and I dropped that part of my payment. I put a little bit of money down. I rolled in my closing costs into the loan. And the loan was about $107,000, I think. I got a 30-year mortgage at 5.5% back in 2003. I moved in here in May of 2003. And because this was a conversion project, meaning these were apartments before, it looks a lot like Melrose. Did you ever see that show, Melrose Place? You might be too young. There's a bunch of buildings with a pool in the center. Excuse me. Very old, built in the 1970s, so our plumbing is always kind of a mess. So yeah, lots of maintenance, high maintenance it seems like, but it's been a really great place to live. So a 30-year mortgage, 5.5%. So I was just clipping along. I got into the personal finance space when I went to Seattle, Washington that same year, 2003, in October. I was up in the Space Needle looking out over Mount Rainier, and I said to myself, Self, you're going to fly home and learn about personal finance. And that's exactly what I did. I had just got that wonderful job where I'm at right now, and I still have it, which, by the way, stay tuned because I'll have some things to share with you guys real soon about 2025. I made a decision. Yeah, can you believe it? Don't tell anybody. So things will be changing for me, and I'll share everything with you as we go. So I flew back home, and I started to think about, should I pay off the mortgage? I became obsessed, like many of you might be obsessed about, should I pay off the mortgage? Should I save and invest instead? And as you'll hear in the episodes coming up that drop at 7 o'clock Eastern, I do share with you things about some case studies coming up where you should really weigh out what is better, paying off a mortgage or saving, investing, or paying off credit card debt, whatever it is. There were 5 or 6 years, I think, 2009, 10, 11, maybe 2008, probably 2009, 10, 11, and up until 2012 when I was a guest on the Suze Orman show on CNBC on Saturday night. It's no longer on the air, but you may remember it. I was a guest on the How Am I Doing segment, and at that point I was sinking $600 into this mortgage in addition to my mortgage payment to get it paid off by the time I was 50 years old. So that's back when I was 46. So I was on this mission to have this mortgage paid off by the time I was 50 years old, because in my mind I thought that's going to free up money in my budget to then put into catch-up contributions. Because once you turn 50, if you guys have a 401k, you can then put in catch-up contributions above and beyond what other people can put in. So that's where my brain was, and it was a good place to be. I don't regret that 5 or 6 years putting that money into the principal to pay this off sooner. So it did make a big dent. But then when I was on the Suze Orman show, she convinced me to stop doing that. And instead, in 2012, I refinanced this loan through the original lender, which was Wells Fargo. Because we have to go back to those times. Remember, after the recession, a lot of people, like me, were either underwater in their mortgage, meaning they owe more than what the value of the property is at that time, because a lot of properties in states like Florida plummeted, right? This condo went from $100,000 value in 2003 to in 2009, it was $55,000. So it got cut in half. And of course, I remember I didn't need to sell. So I just said to myself, self, who cares what it's worth? Continue to pay the mortgage. Because it's just like in the stock market. If you don't sell anything, who cares if the value goes down? But I also knew that if I wanted to sell, I was not able to. But that's okay. We live in the reality of what the market conditions are, and I lived through the Great Recession. For many of you, it may be your parents that lived through the recession in terms of when they were either, making money or preparing for whatever. So, being on the show, she said, Evan, do not continue to pay the $600. Put it into your savings instead. And I said, I wanted to share with you also that the government, through Obama, some of you may remember, maybe, there was what's called the HARP program, the Housing Affordable Refinance Program, which meant that I could go back to Wells Fargo and refinance and not prove that I have equity. And even if I was underwater, I could still refinance. And by the way, I didn't mention, but at that time, my home mortgage was $55,000. So it was worth $55,000. I owed $55,000. I was still able to refinance from a 30-year mortgage to a 15. Now that's what you're going to hear people say. That's very important if you refinance ever in the future. If rates go down and you decide to refinance if you have a mortgage, shorten the term. Don't get another 30-year mortgage. Don't be silly. You want to shorten that term. Does that make sense? You'll be debt-free. You'll reach financial independence a lot earlier. So, I did that. I refinanced to, believe it or not, 3.25%. 3.25% was my interest, which is a rate that we probably won't see for a very long time. I leveraged that opportunity and I locked in $50,000. $55,000. So, I also remember during that time, in 2012, I didn't want to take Suze's advice, but it was, I think, a smart thing because in her mind, she said, you never know what's going to happen, which is true. I could have lost my job, but I didn't. But I didn't know that in 2012.